Good morning, everyone. Tuesday, the 16th of November. I started a brief sharing on last week, Thursday, about the book of Maccabees. And I shared that in that period from the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, through to the birth of Jesus and the beginning of the recordings of Jesus's ministry, is a gap of approximately 400 years. And in that period, there is no word of any prophetic utterance from God. It's as if God goes silent for this period of approximately 400 years. And in fact, technically, we can say that John the Baptist is the last of the Old Testament prophets, but his writings only appear in the New Testament. And in that 400-year gap, a lot happens. I shared about the rise of Alexander the Great and his conquering of the area of Palestine and the Levant, and how when he died, having not married, had no heirs, he distributes the land, all of the known world that he had conquered, to his generals. And the one general that takes over the area around Jerusalem, which is obviously going to be of great importance to us, is a man called Antiochus. And Antiochus goes and attacks the Pharaoh, Ptolemy, and defeats him. He comes back, he begins to assert his authority in the land over which he lives, and he attempts to basically destroy the economy of Israel. And he forces everyone to adopt Gentile beliefs. Everyone must be exactly the same. He says you can't have different religious practices happening in his country. This destroys the economy. And at some point, he realizes that he is running out of money. Also, simultaneously, a man called Antiochus, who has a son called Judas Maccabeus, or Judas the Hammer, begins to stand up against King Antiochus. And the king realizes that with no money in the coffers, because he has destroyed the economy of the area in which he is responsible, leaves the running of that state now in a trusted ruler, Lysias, and he, King Antiochus, goes to Persia to raise funds so that he can defeat Antiochus and his sons, of whom Judas Maccabeus is the most famous, and who takes over after the death of Antiochus as the military leader of the campaign by the Jews who refused to bow the knee to a foreign ruler. They were told to sacrifice the wrong things, pigs, for instance, on the altar of God. They were forbidden to be circumcised. They were forbidden to practice their normal Jewish practices, this Old Testament covenant that determined that they were members of God's family. They were refused permission to obey God. And so Antiochus and later Judas stands up against the king. And it struck me that we are called to do the right thing. Now, obviously, the books of the intertestamental period are not in the normal canon of Scripture, so we cannot use it as profound teaching and correcting for rebuking. But we can learn from the history of the time. And it seems to me that in the book of Revelation that we read today, Revelation 21, how again God honors those who do the right thing. And there's a sense in which we can see Antiochus and Judas Maccabeus trying to do the right thing. And that for me is very significant. Are we doing the right thing? Doesn't necessarily call us to become guerrilla fighters or terrorists and to go and kill people, which is what Antiochus and Judas were doing. But we are called to stand for the truth, even if it means persecution coming our way. And I want to conclude just by saying that today we also remember a woman called Margaret, Queen of Scots, in the year 1070, very long time ago. She married the King of Scotland. She was herself an English princess. She died in the year 1093, so some 23 years after her marriage. Her husband, the King of Scotland, quite a savage fellow, and she is herself, Margaret, is a very devout Christian, and she does the right thing, and she wins the hearts and the minds of the people. She even wins over and tames her husband. How many wives maybe don't pray that they can tame their husbands? But the King of Scotland becomes known as a good, godly man. He's eventually murdered in 1093, and Margaret dies fairly soon after that, and their son David takes over as a king, and he likewise continues to do the right thing. And to this day, 1,000+ years later, they are both well remembered still and revered as a good example for Christians to follow, hence our memory of them in our liturgy. So folks, do the right thing, stand for the gospel, stand for the truth, even if it means you might suffer, because that is the right thing to do. You don't have to go out and fight with people, but stand for the truth, do the right thing. Folks, we'll chat again tomorrow. God bless.